Hey everybody, it's A Dog's Life with Angela Ardolino, and I'm so excited about my guest today. We met, oh gosh, I don't know how many months ago at a dinner with Billy Hokeman, and I had the pleasure of sitting across from her and getting to know her, and I was like, man, I wish this was my vet. Dr. Sarah Urban, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it was a awesome dinner. We got to try some funky foods such as bone marrow and all that, but it was great.
Yes, it was. I remember it. And I also remember being very full afterwards also. So you are specializing or learning more as it comes to you're an integrative vet, correct?
Yes, correct. Yes.
And you're learning more about and practicing acupuncture and chiropractic and
Yeah.
massage. And one of my favorite things about you is food as medicine, which
Yes.
we met through Billy Hokeman from Answers Pet Food. And he's one of my favorite people to talk about medical cannabis and full spectrum CBD because he's a huge fan of it. You know, his baby dog takes it every single day, takes our heel tincture because he doesn't believe in supplements and he treats it as a plant food, a
Hmm.
whole plant food, or a whole food.
Yeah.
We love to call it a whole plant medicine because that's what it is. It's just the plant and nothing else that does all the work. So I love that you use food as
Hmm.
therapy and as a way to heal. So I guessing that you're all for the raw and fresh diet for people.
Yeah. Absolutely. I met Billy and their whole family, Jacqueline Hill, eons before it even became mainstream. So I always joke because I had some of the first batches of that fish stock still in mason jars.
Oh,
and
how funny.
and you think it smells bad now. Back then it was ultra concentrated. It was like a jelly, but yeah, I think we've gotten so far away from looking, especially in the pet food industry, the veterinarian world, looking at how food affects um, our patients. And my big realm, I do a lot of rehab, so we would call it in the human world, physical therapy, but in pet terms, we can call it rehabilitation. And it seems to be one of these things that gets thrown out the window if I have a patient that is recovering from a fracture, hit by a car incident, ACL, or even like some of the cervical spine, intervertebral disc disease that we generically call it. There's nothing that is looked at for nutrition. And so it can be a very new concept to my clients and the patients as to where do we go from that. So sometimes I'll just talk about adding fresh food to the diet, changing the diet to something that isn't as processed. And I can tell you it is a huge component to their healing. And then just for my everyday, patients that I'm coming in for acupuncture, chiropractic and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's, I feel like I say this on every single show, but you weren't taught anything about diet and nutrition in vet school. And you also weren't taught anything about the endocannabinoid system or about acupuncture or chiropractic or any of those things. And this is what I'm always advocating, that these are the type of vets you guys want to look for, because these are the vets who have gone outside of what they were just taught and know. You can't deny it. There's too much evidence now of these natural things. Acupuncture is a science,
Yeah.
chiropractic is a science. And I feel like all of these things have so much in common because they're all being kept from us.
Yes.
They're all being, gosh, how should I say, slandered in the world, as we should be scared of them, or you could
Yeah.
get hurt, or it's hokey pokey, or whatever it is. And it's
Mhm.
not. It's all based on science. And whether I believe the science or not, it doesn't matter. It's helped me tremendously. It's helped my dogs tremendously doing acupuncture and massage and chiropractic. I just got my
Yeah.
gonna learn it. I learned so much from my chiropractor, who we have come to our shop, Beautify the Beast. We have 2 locations, so we bring these people in, and you can't deny it. I mean, you go from a dog limping to a dog, walking again. And people don't understand that not only does it relieve the pain, but it opens up pathways, it opens up the communication. All of these are so wonderful. And I always say every senior animal and person should be on some sort of CBD regimen, but you should also try these other things, acupuncture and chiropractic. I mean, it's just, we can't think that things aren't going to get clogged and, messed up or, whatever. How do you explain it?
I use a lot of the theory of, you get garbage in, garbage out type deal. But when I'm looking at a patient as a whole, there could be a little bit of miscommunication, or it's the jiggly wire and information, when we're talking about chiropractic and even acupuncture, that information is not getting to the brain. The brain then can't transmit info down to organ systems. So when you start not getting the correct signals, you might get too much, is your body in hyperdrive and a sympathetic fight and flight, running type situation? Or are we always in like rest and digest and sleepy? Well, then all of a sudden our organs are not going to be working correctly. Then we might not be metabolizing our food correctly. And then we see all this disease pathology. And I think when you go to an integrative veterinarian who has some of this training, I can look at patients and see, okay, if I have a super anxious dog that's running on hyperdrive all the time, I'm going to be very concerned about its adrenal system when it's 7-8 years old. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, why did it get Cushing's? Well, there's been no signs that entire time. So I really view it as, can we pick up these things early, pick up the little signals that the body's putting out, and try to, get a plateau, bring everything down, smooth everything out. And it can happen very quick, but, you get some of these chronic cases, 10, 11, 12, sometimes I just I want them to improve their quality of life. They're not vomiting anymore. They want to go for a walk. Those are those little tiny like success stories I look for.
Right. I think most people don't understand that, when your dog gets sick or a disease, they don't sit there and stress or have anxiety about them having the disease. They don't know. Yeah. What they care about is their quality of life. But if you're freaking out about it, they're going to pick up on that energy. Yeah. What are some of the, I like how you said, I don't think people understand that dogs expressing or having a lot of stress and anxiety or being hyper all the time will translate into disease later. I'm the best person to talk about that because I gave myself rheumatoid arthritis by being a stressed out, anxious person. Not anymore, thanks to CBD and medical cannabis, which is what led me on, the path of finding out how it worked with our pets, which it works a lot like us. So these are things that people don't understand. I even remember having a boxer here that these people said they tried everything. Mm-hmm. And the boxer came to board with me, and it was like she was on crack, man. She was nuts. And they hand me the food and they're feeding her, oh my God, what the hell? Gravy Train.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they still made Gravy Train.
Yeah.
So I turn it around. First ingredient is high fructose corn syrup. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I immediately, like when they came, of course, did not even open the bag at all. I refused to feed it. But I remember when they came and picked her up, she was a different dog after 2 weeks of eating a raw and fresh diet. We had her on CBD to help her calm down and bring her back to homeostasis. But we never can do anything, no healing, without taking care of the gut and feeding them what they need. Yep. So it was a huge transformation. I'm like, do you see what the ingredients on the dog food is? People bag non-food. It is non-food. It is poison. I'm like, this is like feeding your kids McDonald's it's even worse than McDonald's.
Yeah. Yeah.
McDonald's with, cooked so high that it becomes carcinogenic, and then they pour sugar all over it. So, these are things that pet parents need to keep in mind. We've got to keep with the gut. So we can do the acupuncture, we can do the chiropractic, we can even do the CBD, but if we don't address what we're feeding them, we're not going to prevent that disease from happening. We were talking a little bit about how, until we move on or address any type of disease or issue, we need to look at the gut and the food. And I think that, I've read a lot of vets. Everybody I come in, of course, comes on the show, I start researching. But I think it's the only time I saw in a vet's description, what did you call it? Food therapy?
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, yes! And I already knew you were that way, but actually put it in there makes all the difference in the world. As we know, our dog's immune system lives in their gut.
Right.
We were just talking about lymphedema. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
And people don't know the lymph nodes, the lymphatic system is a part of our immune system and getting these wastes out. So even switching your dog to a fresh diet is, you also want to look at how do you cleanse out these toxins that maybe have built up over the years. Does acupuncture and chiropractic also help with that?
Yeah, it definitely does. So when I do acupuncture and I do a TCVM exam, so Traditional Chinese Veterinary Medical exam, we do take a look at, tongue color, the temperature of the dog, do they have a smell, believe it or not, what are their everyday activities? Because sometimes dogs, you'll have them in this hyper state where they're hot, they're panting, they got dry coat, versus a dog that is more pale and dull and sort of just more blah at home. And depending on what we see off of that, we will feed them appropriately to either bring up their energy levels or, kind of peg down that energy. I'm just thinking back what I did by accident one winter. Was given some cucumbers, and I ate a whole cucumber in the middle of winter. And cucumber in Chinese medicine is a very cooling food. And I was freezing cold for the rest of the day. I had a coat on. Everyone's like, "Are you getting sick?" I'm like, "No, I just made a mistake." So I know how I felt. And so, that's one of the foods I will use for a dog that is hot all the time. It's used a lot in Florida for dogs that get overheated, horses that get overheated in Florida. It's something that even down at the Chi Institute, it's something that, they teach that you could feed horses. But, in the chiropractic too, addressing the gut and the acupuncture in hand, if you have, we talk about nerves and the lymphatics and generically, I think people think chiropractic is I'm moving a bone back into place. I'm not. I'm resetting a little joint receptor. So depending on where you are in the spine, you might have 10 to 12 little joint spaces. And if one's not moving, you're not giving a correct signal to, that organ that might live below it up to the brain. And so if I bring a little bit of movement to that joint and then it's flowing, all the signals are going to be flowing, including your lymphatics, including your blood supply. And so if you have a lot of changes that go along your lumbar spine, your vagus nerve is huge. Your vagus nerve is going to feed into your gut, rest and digest. You have dysfunction there. Of course, you're going to be having maybe vomiting, or the dog might be having diarrhea, or the cat's always throwing up hairballs. One of the biggest things I see and I treat are these dogs that are puking or not wanting to eat. Well, a lot of them get sliding hiatal hernias, no different than people. So I can go in and address that, change their food up, and then they're no longer bulking at their food. So everything's married together.
Right. It all makes sense. And what I love is that there's this other system called the endocannabinoid system, and our brain, makes these wonderful endocannabinoids, which work wonderful with the plant called cannabis, which has phytocannabinoids. And this system is responsible for bringing homeostasis to our bodies. So imagine feeding them right
Hmm.
supporting them with CBD in case they're old, in case something isn't working, in case you did blow your adrenals when you were younger. Whatever it is, it's this wonderful uh, support of our entire immune system. Have you had any experience with any of your patients using CBD or them using CBD and cannabis?
Yeah, definitely. I've had where a lot of the anxiety, where I find once we can get that anxiety down, the body can then worry about other things. They're not in that fight and flight situation anymore. I've had a few, they come to me, they're not responding to your traditional NSAIDs, pain medicine, because that doesn't do anything for that fight and flight. And when you're in that situation, your pain levels you're going to respond to pain or pain stimulus a lot easier. So when you can kind of bring that sympathetic tone down, your pain levels are going to come down as well. So I find you get both benefits. It goes after that pain, but it also treats that anxiety. So I've seen that in a lot of my patients that come for rehab, or even a lot of my seizure patients, they come and they're on the high kibble type diet. So we're pro-inflammatory, and getting them onto a higher fat diet, getting them on, some CBD products. They respond beautifully. And I'm happy to see the traditional vets and some of the neurologists are recognizing that now,
Right.
which is great.
Right. They can't deny their patients who,
No,
they come back a month later when a dog is supposed to have been dead and it's
exactly.
thriving. I mean, I get it all the time. I get the seniors filled with problems, and all I do is a fresh diet and CBD, and I watch them come back to life again. And all I'm doing is supporting their immune system as much as I possibly can, and exercise and clean water. And it seems like we've overcomplicated it so much, but it's so nice to know that there's people out there like you who are doing it. Now, have you worked with horses also?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, horses can get, I don't want to say they're more complicated, but um, horses are so far removed from how they should be living, right now. So when we go into some of our competition type barns, our hunter jumper, dressage, and they're traveling a lot. So, they're going up and down the East Coast. And if you look at how horses they should be out roaming, walking many miles a day. If you ever get the chance to go to the Pryor Mountains, and those horses have to walk down the mountainside to go get water, and then they walk back up. Our horses have everything right in front of them. They're not getting the exercise, and then we wonder why they get all these chronic illnesses. And so we really
And the
have
anxiety that they
yeah.
might
Oh,
feel.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if they're not kept with a herd, having that, they're very, very social animals, opposed to a dog that could just live with a person. They need that social interaction. But addressing their teeth and their feet and their diet and chiropractic care is huge for them, because if their teeth are not getting properly addressed yearly, so they continuously grow their teeth, sort of like rabbits, so they have to get filed down. But you also want to be going to an equine dentist that really fully understands how to equilibrate or balance the mouth, opposed to just sticking a file in there. And the same thing with the feet, trying to keep that foot in a natural state or a natural shape is ideal. And if any one of these things goes off, then you're going to have dysfunction.
So
Which,
to me, it seems kind of like how we always compare our dogs to wolves.
mm-hmm.
Should we be comparing the horses to wild horses?
They are far removed. I think they're closer to that state than, when we talk about our dogs with wolves. Um, it's They're just not flourishing in being in a dry lot with hay, and not being able to walk around and get the proper exercise and the interaction, which I think can lead to a lot of the GI upsets that we see, the ulcers, the anxiety, some of the aggression. And horses are super prone to, we see Cushing's in horses. It's very, very prominent. And
Wow.
then we wonder why.
Right. Well, it's funny because I have a farm and people are always asking me why I don't have horses. And I'm like, I don't feel like I have enough space or time or anything. So just the couple months ago saved my neighbor's donkey who was about to be put down with colic. And we gave him my full spectrum
Yeah.
CBD and brought him back. And then I said to him, okay, well, now we have to address what caused it.
Yeah.
I have no idea if he did.
Yeah.
I give the information and go, I hope you did. Gus is still running around next door, so I'm glad he's still good. But yeah, it's funny to think that it was soon after he adopted him, he rescued him from somewhere. And, whether it was the stress or anxiety or being in this new place, he was sick and, he got better when we supported him. You're working on getting a master's from the Chi Institute. What does that mean?
So, they developed kind of a sub. They developed this master's program down there because there was a lot of people going through and getting certifications in acupuncture. So, Chi Institute is one of the main schools that provide certification to veterinarians that want to learn acupuncture. But they also have a vast majority. They have a ton of continuing education, which is wonderful. So you can go get studies in advance, small animal, large animal acupuncture, food therapy, traditional Chinese veterinary food therapy, Tui Na, which is a certain massage technique, and herbal medicine, which is a pretty intense course. And then they had some other advanced stuff. And there isn't right now, unfortunately, I think it's going to come down the road. There isn't board certifications in holistic medicine. So, when we think about a human can go on to go get a naturopath doctor degree, there isn't a board certification. There is a board certification now for rehab, sports medicine rehab for veterinarians, which is great because it does encompass some things.
Well, and I think there's enough people in the world now. I still get upset, when someone writes me and says, where's the proof? Where's the research? My vet doesn't know anything about it and says it's dangerous, when it's coming to medical cannabis. And I just like, oh gosh, when you figure it out, give me a call. Otherwise, I think there's enough of us now in the world who are listening and getting the message out that these all natural, old, that have been used for thousands of years works.
Yep.
And it's just being kept from us. And there's no denying it. I'll never forget the first time I tried acupuncture. I couldn't believe how good it felt and how wonderful it was. And just like everything else in the world, there's going to be good ones and there's going to be bad ones. And you got to find the good people and the good vets. But, my number one tip for those listeners is when you meet an integrative vet and you may not have one near you, you're getting a vet who has gone outside and learned about these other wonderful healing ways to heal our animals. Mm-hmm. What are some of your best success stories? Like one of your favorite stories of an animal where you were like, I know I get some and I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know if I can do any. And then it does. I just do it anyway because I know that's what's supposed to happen. And then I get to watch tumors fall off and go away and cancer go away. So I can't imagine what you've seen. What are some of your favorites?
I definitely have had I had a POA pony. So it's a Pony of Americas. It's a breed of pony, and she's pushing 38, and it was one of these things I came in and saw her. She had dealt with probably for about 15-20 years with squamous cell carcinomas on her. She had lived in Florida, so being more of the Appaloosa, like she had a lot of more white skin and they're more prone to this, and multiple rounds of different injectable chemotherapeutics. And so at this point, when I went to go see her 2 years ago, it was in her sinus cavity. And so her eye was a little bit bulgy. She had some nasal discharge. And the tricky thing was she was super sensitive to any medicine. So she had underlying liver issues. So anything you would give her, you had to give it in a microdose. But I had started her on just some Chinese herbals, and we did some like acupressure because just even doing acupuncture was too much. We got to worry about sometimes our older ones, you get left, you have like an oil burner or hurricane lamp, you got a certain amount of oil in it, and they got this little itty bitty, so you don't want to crank up everything that you can do, you'll burn out that oil. So with her, it was just, we're just going to do acupuncture, we're going to do some herbs. So her energy had picked up, she started eating really well. And the crazy thing was mom had called, she's a little bit panicked because she thought the mass was getting bigger. Well, here she was actually starting to exteriorize mass in her nose. Huge chunks of it, as disgusting as it was coming out of her nose.
Awesome.
There was no blood. She was eating, drinking. And so the local vet came out, scanned it, stuck a little camera up there, and it actually was just hollowing out and falling out of her nose.
Awesome.
And she had been using a little bit of CBD with her, and her goat, this is just a side note, her goat, who had gotten sick when it was young, got tetanus, super arthritic, looked like the Tin Man walking around, and got into the horse's food, which probably knowing the goat knew it had something in it it wanted, but ate some of the food, the CBD oil. The mom came out the next morning, the goat's on top of it's like doghouse thing. And it hadn't been, up on that for years. So she's like, yeah, I'm going to need more because it now too.
Awesome.
But, yeah.
Yeah, those are the types of things that, we see here all the time on my rescue farm. And there's, you can't deny it. You can't deny it. But what's funny is that, I constantly get the call of the tumor dying or falling off or whatever it is. So when a tumor dies inside the body, does the body just flush it out?
It tends to. It can get worse before it gets better.
Right. I find that almost all the time.
Yeah, and it can go with anything. I see it with food even though the patient looks pretty good, their skin and coat can get worse before it gets better because now it's got the proper nutrients to get rid of stuff. And you can have a little bit of a Herx reaction where the body just all of a sudden is purging. But my thing is, as long as the dog's not having a fever, they're still eating and drinking fine. Those are all, they still have that vitality. I don't get too concerned.
Right. And I have 10 dogs here right now. I've seen them all, back in the day when I switched them all to raw, I tell everybody it was a literal shit show. And, it's amazing when a tumor is dying or when the toxins are leaving the animal's body. It's not pretty, it's ugly, but to stick with it because that's what's happening is that there's a cleanse going on. Well, we're out of time. I enjoyed talking to you so much. Where can our listeners follow you or keep up with you if they're interested in that?
Yeah. So right now I'm in a little bit of like in between career changes, but right now I'm working down at Always Helpful Veterinarian Services. So it's in Nottingham, PA. So
Awesome.
We are a holistic practice. So you can go online and find that practice online. And then I always tell owners, if they need, if they live in Texas, California, how do you find a practitioner? You can go on the American Holistic Veterinarian Medical Association, and there's an option to look for a practitioner. So that's
right. And that's ahvma.org.
Mm-hmm.
And, and just like everything else, all holistic vets aren't created equal. So even then, you're still going to want to do your research and don't expect that you're going to have the best integrative vet right down the street. You might have to drive a little bit. That's why we hope in the future there'll be telemedicine where we can find our favorite vets and be able to do a consultation online. That would be so awesome.
I would like that from the beach.
Cool, right? That would be really good. Well, you know how it says you got to take care of yourself before you take care of everyone else. So I'm all for that. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you in August in your town, your area of town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.